I want to welcome everyone to, again, another webinar series called Logistics in Motion. My name is Arnon Mello. I'm the president for MELLOHAWK Logistics here in Canada, in the US, and Brazil. And we welcome you to this yet another webinar together with the Trade Commissioner Office of the Canadian government in Brazil. So we're honored to have today with us, and I'm going to move forward here in my presentation so you make sure that you know we have a little agenda. Of course, we're going to cover many topics, but I want to welcome, first of all, Sheila Santos from the Trade Commissioner Office in São Paulo, from the ICT division. And we have the honor of having with us today Dr. Heather Cameron, the Consul General of Canada in São Paulo. So thank you so much, both of you, for being with us today. And I'm going to start this webinar and welcoming Consul General Heather Cameron for her opening remarks. Dr. Cameron, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Aaron, and it's a pleasure to join you all today. And welcome everyone who's attending virtually in Canada, in Brazil, or beyond. Brazil, as you know, is a huge market and a very important market for Canadian companies. It's one of our top global export markets and an area of significant Canadian investment as well. So I'm very pleased that despite the pandemic, we're able to work with partners to bring to the attention of Canadian businesses some of the opportunities and some of the challenges or obstacles of working in Brazil. The area of ICT is increasingly important to us all, and lots of innovation taking place. And it is an area where Canadian companies have had success. And I think Sheila from our Trade Commissioner Service will speak to that in a little bit more detail. If this tweaks your interest in the Brazilian market, of course, our Trade Commissioner Service offices right across Canada are available to help support you, and our offices right across Brazil as well. So I hope that you will move forward and get in contact with us after the event. And perhaps during the chat also, please feel free to ask any questions of us. So thank you very much, and I'll hand it back to Aaron.
Thank you so much. And I also want to point out always the importance of the Trade Commissioner offices all over the world, not only in Brazil. Brazil, of course, is a niche market for MELLOHAWK Logistics, as I am Brazilian, and MELLOHAWK is one of the approved suppliers of the Canadian government. But the amount of knowledge and help that can come from the Trade Commissioner services all over the world. And that's why we decided to invite the Trade Commissioner offices to join us on this webinar so we can expose their talent to all the Canadian companies that want to penetrate in Brazil. And as you're going to see with Sheila's presentation, how much value there is for you, Canadian exporter, trying to send your goods to Brazil or South America or all over the world. So without further ado, I will start with, as I always do, talking a little bit about MELLOHAWK. We are a full-fledged logistics company, and we move cargo all over the world. We've been in business for 17 years, and we have helped many Canadian companies penetrate specifically the Brazilian market because we understand the complexities of the customs systems in Brazil, working together with the Commissioner Office to analyze product and duties and taxes and move the goods safely to its final destination. So we do air, ocean, and land transportation. We do customs clearance. We do a lot of personal effects moving all over Brazil, and Brazilians, they escape the winter in Canada and they tend to go back to Brazil as well. And we also do a lot of consulting, and then what it is to analyze your product, either coming into Canada or going into Brazil, and advise you on how much duty and taxes you're going to pay on that particular product. And I know the Trade Commissioner offices also help with that analysis as well of certain products. So we have all the licenses to move cargo that are dangerous, perishable all over the world. So if you need help, please count on us always. I always start the webinar giving you a little bit of a latest news, what's happening in the world. As you know, we live in a special moment with COVID-19, where logistics and supply chain in the world has been affected, especially air freight. So the latest news here is global air capacity declined 29% on the first week of July compared to last year. Trans-Pacific air cargo capacity declined in both ways for the first time since early May. However, North America and Latin America is the only trade lane that shows an improvement in air capacity, as we see Air Canada specifically transforming their passenger flights to carry cargo where the seats were on the plane and trying to fly to some destinations to continue this movement. Of course, Air Canada has been deeply affected, and all of us, cargo agents, with the lack of flights going to several destinations. Trucking company CH Robinson and Microsoft announced plans to digitally transform supply chain to improve monitoring and enhance real-time visibility for customers to better meet their needs. Many freight forwarders are taking steps to improve digital offerings like real-time monitoring of location, temperature of cargo, and transfer of documents. Many innovations are popping up in response to the pandemic. We see here in Canada, customs, for example, accepting electronic approval of customs clearance, when before sometimes we had to deliver a stamp to customs, a blue stamp with cargo release in special cases. So many things are happening with steamship lines all over the world in data transmission. So we see while COVID has disrupted so many things, it has also improved how technology and customs authorities communicate to facilitate the movement and clearance of cargo. And we're going to see more of that happening. And also e-commerce shows no signs of slowing down in this pandemic. And because fear of infection, credit card chargebacks, and proof of delivery issues are growing, innovations like touchless delivery, face recognition, software, and proof of delivery technology are rising fast. Expect more technology in this sense to come over. Logistics and supply chain, we always use technology to transmit data to our clients, but we see a new level now as new technologies come into place to facilitate the proof of delivery. So these are the latest news right now. There's many more, but we don't have all the time we want to bring you all of that. And I want to say here before Sheila starts is that ICT supports logistics companies in the following ways. Data sharing, now more than ever before, information is value. The electronic exchange of information and financial data with supply partners, including regulatory bodies, will be mandatory in many regions. Strategic supply chain planning and better planning on multimodal transportation to meet both green and efficiency targets, of course. CO2 reporting compliance needs effective allocation, tracking, and measurement of cost and resources down to individual shipment level. Track and trace visibility, as I said, for end-to-end, from factory to end customers. That already exists, but it's just getting better every single day. Mobility systems must be quick and easy to roll out with flexible setup and configuration for new customers, new routes, new regions, partnerships and alliances, and mergers and acquisitions. Streamlining of cross-border and compliance process. As you know, we have the biggest border in the world with the US, so trucks cross every single day, and all of that data transmission has been done electronically for years, facilitating trade. But again, for ocean and air freight and specialty clearances in Canada, Customs has been working very closely with all CIFA, the Canadian International Freight Forwarders Association, to improve this data transmission. So this is the latest updates. Before we go on, I want to say a big thank you to Angela Donciu from Seneca College. I am a graduate of Seneca College of the International Business Program. I also sit on the PAC, the advisory board of Seneca. So I want to thank Professor Angela for being here today on this presentation and spreading the word to her students, so all of them are watching this presentation, as well as other students all over the colleges in Canada. So thank you so much for all of you who are here today, including all the companies that are taking part. So now I would like to invite Sheila to present her slides, and I'm going to project here to make life easier for everybody. And I hope you can see it. Is that okay, Sheila?
Yes. Yes.
And you're gonna let me know when to forward the next slide.
Yes, I will. So first of all, thanks a lot to MELLOHAWK. Thanks a lot, Arnon, Diego, Peter. It has been great so far to work with you all. It's an honor to be here. So I've prepared this presentation to our Canadian ICT companies very carefully, and I hope you will enjoy it. Next. So I will divide my presentation in 7 steps. I will have a few slides about the Trade Commissioner Service, about Brazil, ICT and 5G. I will cover very fast LGPD as well. 2 slides on taxes and tariffs, and then we'll move to digital transformation and COVID-19. And after my conclusion, we can go to the questions and answers. Next. So let's start with the Trade Commissioner Service. The Trade Commissioner Service is a Global Affairs Canada service offered to all Canadian companies, and it was established like 120 years ago, and we have offices on more than 160 cities. Next. So our clients, they are companies that are part of the Canadian business community, who have meaningful economic ties to Canada, that contribute to Canada's economic growth, and have demonstrated capacity for internationalization. Next. The key services that we offer to these clients are preparation for international markets, which is delivered from Canada, from our regional offices. And then in our posts all over the world, we deliver the other services, market potential assessment, identification of qualified contacts, and commercial problem solving. Next. The TCS in Brazil, well, we said that the TCS all over the world, we have more than 160 offices. In Brazil, we have 6. So it's spread all over the country. We have the Canadian Embassy in Brasilia, the Consulate General of Canada, both in São Paulo and Rio de Janeiro. And then we have 3 smaller trade offices in Recife, Porto Alegre, and Belo Horizonte. Next. So these are just a few of the sectors in Brazil that are covered in Brazil. So we have trade commissioners specialized in each of these sectors. You can see here ICT, life sciences, clean tech, infrastructure, mining, power, aerospace, oil and gas, education, and we still have others. Next. This is a very interesting program offered by Global Affairs Canada. For those who are not aware of it, the Can Export program is a popular Canadian government grant that supports businesses as they explore or expand new and underdeveloped international markets. So the export grant is specifically designed to help firms participate in trade shows, where they can meet with potential customers, potential partners, etc. Next. So let's talk a bit about Brazil now. Just, just some figures to let you know how big Brazil is in terms of territory, economy, population. So in terms of territory, it's the largest country in South America, 5th largest landmass in the world. Its economy is the largest in Latin America and the 2nd largest in the Americas, following the US. The 9th largest economy in the world by nominal GDP. And in terms of population, it's the 6th largest population in the world with more than 210 million inhabitants. Next. So I prepared this not to discourage you, but I think it's important for you to be aware that of that term called Custo Brasil. If you didn't hear about that yet, this refers to all direct, indirect costs of doing business in Brazil. It includes the high tariffs in Brazil, the employee benefits, complex labor code, environment laws, complex legal system, customs procedures, complex tax structure, intellectual property laws, high logistic costs, government bureaucracy, distributions. You have it all, but you have also the Trade Commissioner service to help you, right? So we have developed a market entry strategy for you. So first of all, visit the country. You must visit, you must establish relationships. Count on the TCS support. Take part in trade shows. Find a good partner. We, trade commissioners, we can help you find the best resellers, value-added resellers, and agents for your company. And always, always in Brazil, focus on the development of strong personal relationships, as this is a real part of the business culture here. Next. Let's move now and discuss about ICT and 5G in Brazil. Next. So I brought you some numbers here about the telecom sector in Brazil that you can find in the circles. And the figures that I would like to share with you the most is about the whole market. So in 2018, the Brazilian IT market grew by 9.8%. It was above the global average, and it exceeded the local expectations in Brazil, which was about half of it. In 2019, the IT services market growth was at 6.4%, and it earned more than 40 billion reais, which is approximately 10 billion Canadian dollars. In terms of pandemic, despite the COVID-19 pandemic, some segments in the ICT sector are still expected to continue growing in 2020, especially for services companies working with information security, cloud, collaboration, and especially also virtualization of environments. In 2020, IDC Brazil still expects the country to invest 48 billion American dollars in IT and other 41 billion American dollars in telecommunications services. Next. So I brought here, just so you know, the main telecommunications operators and the active MVNOs in Brazil. So in terms of telecommunication operators, the main ones here in Brazil are Vivo from Telefónica, Claro, which belongs to Mexican American Móvil, TIM belongs to Telecom Italia, Brazilian Oi, Sky with AT&T Directives, and Nextel that now belongs to Claro and also América Móvil. So here you have some figures as well about the telecommunications market in Brazil. We have 225 million cell phones in Brazil. So there is a density of 106 cell phones per 100 inhabitants. We also have 400 million connected devices. So we are not just counting here cell phones, laptops, and so on, but also connected device connected by Internet of Things, for example. Next slide. So let's talk a bit about 5G now. In the COVID-19 scenario, technology has proven to be an important ally in adapting and developing solutions to be applied to these new realities. So as new realities, we have remote work, we have meetings by video conference, we have collaborative tools, and of course, all of that increased a lot the data traffic and the demand for connectivity. So it's a perfect moment for the arrival of 5G, because 5G is an agile data transmission network. Next. I'm sharing very quickly here with you some main features related to 5G, as the higher speed, up to 10 gigabytes per second, more connections. So it's possible to have a density of 1 million connected devices per square kilometers. Lower latency, it's gonna be about less than 5 milliseconds, and a capacity to have 1,000 times more device connected than 4G. And the possible applications that I brought to you here, just some of them, are self-driving vehicles, military applications, expansion of the use of remote surgery. It's going to be essential for the fourth industrial revolution, and also to monitor floods and other natural disasters. Next. So a survey conducted in April this year showed that the telecom operators, they are focusing right now in the first two business cases. So they are seeing that 5G high speed for mobile brand and fixed brands is gonna be the main case for them, followed by the use of massive IoT, and just as the last option, 5G being used for critical services with low latency. Nevertheless, some groups like the Next Generation Mobile Networks argues that 5G is a technology designed to open new business in the corporate and industrial sectors, and not so much in the massive consumer segment. So, however, also according to them, there is an important pitfall that is the lack of knowledge on the operator side about the verticals and their fragmentation in what it makes possible to create a single and homogeneous offer. So the operators all over the world, they are acting like this. They are starting with these two first use cases, but they still have a lot to learn on how to monetize on new services with 5G. Next. So in the 5G new world, GSA, which is an international association, has identified in May 2020 that worldwide, we have just 73 operators that have already launched mobile services and other 39 with fixed services. The main infrastructure vendors for this technology are Huawei, Ericsson, Nokia, and Cisco. And the number of 5G cell phones nowadays, 5G mobile phones, is 63.7 million cell phones. And in the end of April, if we see the statistics here in terms of 5G mobile phones, we can see that China is is far ahead of its main competitors, South Korea and the United States, but it's really by far. Next. So 5G in Brazil. The 5G auction was first planned to take place in March 2020, but with COVID and so on, it has been postponed to later this year. It's not decided yet in which month it's gonna happen, but the government promised to have it until the end of 2020. I made sure to show you here the main frequencies that are going to be auctioned in the end of 2020. And it's very important to say that there are some important requirements made by the government, like the bid winners will have to acquire licenses in all 4 bands. This is a government effort to improve and expand fixed broadband infrastructure and access to mobile services in areas of less commercial interest, such as roads and small towns. We had this kind of problem in Brazil with 4G. So many operators were not interested at all in bringing the 4G technology to these small towns where there were no commercial interest, and they already had commitments to do that by that time. But now I believe that the government will be, the actions will be very tough on that. And in terms of value, the auction is expected to move up to 5 billion Canadian dollars. And it's seen as one of the largest in the world in terms of frequency bands to be offered to operators and manufacturers. So the conclusion is the soonest we are gonna see 5G in Brazil, it's gonna be in 2021. Next. There are some concerns that you must be aware about 5G in Brazil. First one is linked to infrastructure. Brazil legislation still have a very old legislation in terms of building antennas. I mean, each nationality has its own legislation. Just for you to have an idea of what it means, we right now have 4,000 requests to install new antennas pending approval. And this is for 4G. And 5G, with 5G, this would be a great problem because, in fact, 5G would increase the number of antennas in Brazil by 400%. So we would not have like 4,000 requests pending, but much more. So this is something that must be updated, this legislation linked to the building of antennas. The second concern is related to the frequency. I don't know if you are aware, but the most used 5G frequency in Brazil, it's gonna be the 3.5 gigahertz band. This same frequency band is also used by 22 million satellite dishes in Brazilian homes. So it's clear that there is a huge possibility that it may cause some interference. The third concern regards the auction value. Telecom companies say that if the government wants them to increase so much the level of commitments that they will have with the coverage of this technology, the auction value should be lower because according to them, the Brazilian government should not expect to make money out of the auction. I brought here something that was said by Ericsson. Of course, Ericsson is an interested party in this whole debate. But according to them, Brazil would lose up to 20 billion reais. I didn't transform it in converted it in Canadian dollars, but I would say around 7 billion Canadian dollars. So Brazil would lose this in tax revenue until 2025 if 5G is not implemented very soon. Others say that it's also true that this delay would also allow Brazil to see what the world is doing right or wrong before implementing it. Next slide. So I would like to say that despite the fact that, no, game changer, yes, okay. Despite the fact that the auction will not happen before the end of the year, we will have 5G in Brazil very, very soon. So this is something being led by telecom operator Claro and TIM. So why Brazil is gonna have this? Because both the two operators, Claro and TIM, they are relying on a technology called DSS, or Dynamic Spectrum Sharing. And this technology allows the deployment of both 4G and 5G on the same frequency band. They allocate the spectrum resources dynamically between the two technologies based on user demand. According to Qualcomm Brazil, 5G DSS is a game changer in the industry. And never before in the cellular telephony history, two technologies coexisted in the same band. This is not me saying, this is Qualcomm Brazil. Next. So I guess you must be aware about the huge debate nowadays around Huawei, right? I brought you here an image that shows which countries are banning Huawei, which ones are unlikely to ban, which ones are already using. So I would like to explain very briefly that this debate is based on allegations not yet backed up by evidence at all, that Huawei hardware could have backdoors, allowing the Chinese government to monitor and control networks across the globe, or even trying to insert malware in government systems. So just repeating again, this is not yet backed up by evidence. Next. So in Brazil, we have these all 5G infrastructure vendors that Brazil could potentially work with. And at the same time, the Brazilian geopolitical position is very sensitive. Brazil is being kind of squeezed between two superpowers, the USA and China. The Brazilian president is very aligned with Washington on the one hand, but in the other hand, Huawei is the biggest provider of telecom equipment in Brazil. Just to give you an idea, Huawei built roughly 70,000 of the country's 86,000 operational radio antennas in Brazil. So it's really very difficult to Brazil to ban Huawei from this territory. So the conclusion you'll see in the next slides is that Brazil is gonna be open to all these 5G infrastructure vendors that you can see in this slide. Next. So there was indeed a movement against Huawei that was led by Telecom Italia, and TIM Brazil is a subsidiary of Telecom Italia. So the fact is that Telecom Italia has removed Chinese Huawei from a tender for 5G equipment for the core network it's preparing to build both in Italy and in Brazil. So what's going on? It's exactly what I told you before. This decision was based on the allegations that are being made about Huawei and the Chinese government. But what is very, very interesting is that Team Brazil, which I explained already, that's a subsidiary of Telecom Italia, had already begun some 5G trials with Huawei in the south of Brazil, in the city of Florianópolis. And in fact, until now, Team hasn't said anything about that. So Team has yet to comment on whether or not the trials will continue. And why it matters? It matters because there is a 5G Cold War going on between the US and China. And as I said before, Brazil is being squeezed not only between these two superpowers, but these two superpowers who are also Brazil's main trade partners. Next. Let's talk a bit about the cybersecurity directives, because we don't have the auction yet, but we already made a very important step, which was signing the cybersecurity directives that will have to be respected by 5G infrastructure providers in Brazil. So the interesting thing is that it places Brazil equidistant from its main trade partners, China and the US. And it's true that the rules do not give Chinese Huawei a completely open market. So it's open, Brazil continues open as well to US supported companies such as Cisco and Nordic firms as well, such as Ericsson and Nokia, which are also present in Brazil. About the 5G latest rules in Brazil, it's very interesting to learn something about that, because it's very based in the principle of diversity. So first of all, telecom operators must have different contractors. It cannot work just with one vendor. The same geographical area will have at least 2 operators using equipment from different suppliers. And third, there will be a diversity of operators per region and per frequency band as well. And another anti-monopoly rule, which is very important, is that the operator must guarantee quality and availability of data. And in order to do that, it must plan alternative routes for data traffic in case infrastructure from one supplier is compromised for whatever reason. That's why it must have contracts with at least 2 suppliers. Next. So in terms of data security and encryption rules, in case of security breaches, it doesn't matter at all if they are intentional or otherwise, both operators and infrastructure suppliers will answer in accordance with their liabilities. Also, operators must ensure that 5G data will be encrypted according to the norms set up by the regulators. Networks must support additional cryptography protocols added by users as well, especially in the case of critical infrastructure, such as power plants, for example. Also, all software using infrastructure equipment can be audited for safety at any given point. And last but not least, telecom operators must implement protections that allow them to detect and mitigate storm attacks, such as denial of service attacks, which would be a flood of internet traffic. Next. Let's talk a bit about LGPD now. Next. LGPD is the Brazilian data privacy law. Next. So you must have heard already about GDPR, and our equivalent is LGPD. So we all know nowadays that data is the new oil, and consequently, this new digital economy needs some regulation. So LGPD has been created, inspired by the European GDPR. Its main rule is that if a company is authorized to have access to some people's data for a specific purpose, it cannot at all keep other types of data that are not for this purpose, and that can even, and most of all, if this data can even be used to help identifying those people. So this legislation applies to data from unidentified or identifiable natural person, only to individuals, not to legal entities. And who has to comply with LGPD? LGPD applies to any person, whether natural or legal, who performs the processing of personal data for commercial purposes. It doesn't matter if it's online data, offline data. The law is applicable not only to companies located in Brazil, this is important, but also to those that offer services to the Brazilian consumer market, or collect and process data from people located in Brazil. Next. So the data holder, natural people like me or you, they will have the right to ask to those companies, what do you know about me? Who did you share this information with? Or it can request, the person can request, I want you to delete my data, or I want you to transport my data. This is totally up to the data holder to make these questions, and the companies, they are obliged to provide the answers. In terms of sensitive personal data, we can say that this is any kind of data that can indicate racial or ethnic origin, religious belief, political opinion, membership of a religious, philosophical, or political union or organization. It can indicate health conditions, sexual life, or genetic or biometric data. So in addition to that, the LGPD also created what we call in Brazil ANPD. ANPD is the National Data Protection Authority. This is a public administration body which is responsible for overseeing, implementing, supervising, and complying with the LGPD throughout the national territory. It's important to say that ANPD is still in its constitution phase, with appointments still in progress. Just my last slide about LGPD. Some things are often forgotten by some companies, and they must have in mind that they must also protect data like coming from employees, also data that is not digitized, like data still on paper, such as medical records, for example, and always forgotten as well, unstructured repositories with images, for example. So very important to know is that the law applies to data that already exists in the company and not only to those that arise after the law comes into force. In terms of calendar, very quickly, the law was enacted in 2018. They gave time for the companies to adapt until 2020. The law was initially scheduled to enter into force in February this year, and now it will possibly happen in August 2020. The starting date to impose fines for offenders initially as well is scheduled for February 2021. Now will possibly take place in August 2021. Next. Let's talk very briefly about taxes and tariffs, because this is a subject that interests a lot Canadian ICT companies willing to export to Brazil. Next. That's right. So I always like to share this table because it's very clear what you can see there. There is a comparison between a product manufactured in Canada and another one manufactured in Brazil. We, as an example, we gave we assumed that they would have the same price when they were produced in Canada and Brazil. Both had a cost of 100,000 Canadian dollars. But you will see that after all the taxes and tariffs that are imposed to imported products or to products manufactured in Brazil, you will have a very different cost in the end. So Canadian product would have a final cost of 182K, while the Brazilian product would cost 153K. And that's why products manufactured in Brazil, if they have the same base cost in the beginning as an imported product manufactured outside of Brazil, they are always more competitive. So just going through some points that I put here. So imports are subject to a number of taxes and fees in Brazil. They are usually paid during the customs clearance process. 3 taxes account for the bulk of import costs. These are the import duty, the industrialized product tax, and the merchandise and service circulation tax, ICMS. And you can add to it several smaller taxes and fees that would apply to imports. Important to say as well that unlike other countries, in Brazil, most taxes are calculated on a cumulative basis. It's very important to memorize this. Another thing that you should have in mind is that Brazil is part of Mercosul, the Southern Common Market, together with Argentina, Paraguay, and Uruguay. And because of that, Mercosul already have its own common external tariff. But it's also important to know that each of these countries, they keep their own list of exceptions to the common external tariff. Next. Just a few tips here. The import duty is a tax levied on a SIF basis. In most cases, its rates range from 10 to 35%. In terms of ex-tariff imports, this is just applied to equipments where there is no similar equipment being manufactured locally. So an importer can seek import duty waivers to reduce import costs. This tax reduction is called ex-tariff, and it consists of a temporary reduction on import duties of capital goods but also information technology and telecommunications goods. Very important to have this in mind. It can only be requested by local companies with import or export registration with customs. If this status is granted, the import tariff can be temporarily lowered to 2% for up to 2 years. Then you will have to renew it, and the government would have to check if there is no equipment is still being manufactured that's similar to yours. And just a last note in terms of temporary entry, temporary importation of products are used for a predetermined time of period and re-exported. Under Brazil's temporary import program, the import duty and the industrialized product tax are used to determine the temporary import tax. Just a last comment on that. Our colleagues from MELLOHAWK do this very, very well, and you can count on them when you have to export a product from Brazil to Brazil, sorry, and you must know the taxes that apply, the import duties that apply, and you can also reach out to us to the Trade Commissioner Service in Brazil, just to check which are the taxes and tariffs that would apply for your products. The only thing we need is that you submit the HS code, Harmonized System Code, and a short description of the product that you are willing to send to Brazil. Let's move to the next subject, which is digital transformation in Brazil. I love this subject. So I would like to highlight 3 initiatives that we conduct in Brazil in the last year. So you can see here 2 images about the mining sector and the power sector. So I did this jointly with my colleagues in charge of these sectors. So it was totally focused on digital transformation. So in terms of mining, we worked here. We had meetings with approximately 20 mining companies. We identified 109 leads, business leads to our clients. And then we recruited Canadian companies that could provide solutions to these demands. So we had a bunch of digital companies that came to Brazil last year and had several meetings with these mining companies here in Brazil. It was a very successful initiative. And 1 month later, we had another one with my colleague in charge of the power sector. And this time we went to Canada. So we brought several key players of the power sector to Canada, and we prepared the whole program to them, where they met several Canadian digital suppliers. It was a very nice initiative as well, giving us good results. And the last initiative that I would like to mention happened like 2 years ago. It was a worldwide initiative, and it happened around a great tech event called Collision, which should have happened in Toronto, but because of COVID, it became a virtual event. And in this case, we had companies from all over the world, where we had TCS offices recruiting local companies to take part in this event. So not only the Canadian companies who took part in Collision could take part in this initiative, all Canadian companies, all ICT Canadian companies were invited to take part. So the way it worked is that we identified all the demands. In my case, for example, I have identified with some colleagues here in Brazil the main demands of the companies in Brazil. We presented this to several Canadian clients, and they decided with which companies they wanted to meet. Then after that, the Brazilian companies, they vetted that list, saying the ones that they would like to meet, the ones they would not like to meet. And out of that, we had 121 virtual meetings happening between 70 Canadian companies and 13 Brazilian companies. So this was only for Brazil, 121 meetings. It was huge. So let's move to the next slide to talk a bit of AI in Brazil, artificial intelligence. So the Brazilian government right now, it's working on a national AI strategy. We still don't have. We know that almost 20 countries in the world already have a national AI strategy. Canada was the first one to establish its own national strategy concerning AI. Brazil is still discussing, and we hope that very soon we will have it. Another thing which is important to know is that in November 2019, last year, our minister, Marcos Pontes, announced the creation of 8 AI and IoT laboratories in Brazil. So the dates of the implementation of these laboratories have not been defined yet, but we really hope that this will be done very soon. A survey conducted in the end of last year identified the main challenges for the adoption of artificial intelligence in Brazil. First one, it was said that there is a lack of useful and relevant data, free and also free of built-in bias, and that does not violate privacy rights that we must have in mind, right? The second one was the high costs and budgets associated to AI solutions. We know that there are several solutions that are not that expensive, but I guess Brazilian companies still have this idea that they would be very, very expensive. The third challenge identified was the lack of participation and engagement of stakeholders. So sometimes we have the time to discuss to managers, supervisors, even directors, but we don't see the involvement of key stakeholders like the president of the company, the vice president, and this is key to decide to adopt AI solutions, for sure, no doubts of it. The fourth challenge was the difficulty of identifying talents able to work with AI. And this is not particular to Brazil, this is worldwide. There is a shortage worldwide of AI talents, and so this is also happening in Brazil. And the fifth challenge is the cybersecurity concerns that we will discuss more in depth in the next slides. Next. So let's talk about readiness for the use of AI. The fact is that Brazil is very well positioned in Latin America in terms of both cybersecurity and the technological ecosystem in the country. Brazil ranks number 2 in both fields. You have the source of the study here. And the main solution adopted by Brazilian companies so far are chatbots, no doubt of it either. And chatbots, it's a fact that it's one of the entry points for the adoption of AI. It doesn't matter the market, AI chatbots are always one of the main entry points, and it's used for customer care. Important to say that most large companies in Brazil, they have been working with big data for many years. So what's happening right now is that they are extending analytical capabilities with machine learning. So this is a real opportunity that should be explored here in Brazil. In terms of legislation, while we don't have a real law for AI, there was a draft bill that was presented by a senator last year in September that provides for the gradual adoption of artificial intelligence in Brazil. So in summary, the draft bill proposes to forbid the use of 100% autonomous AI solutions and determines a gradual implementation of this technology in the country. Article 4 of this draft bill says decision-making systems based on AI should always be used as a support to human decision-making. So let's see what happens with this draft bill. Let's see if it will become a law or not. Next. I would like to show you a bit about the Brazilian cellular IoT market numbers. Brazil has a very mature IoT market. It's the largest IoT market in LATAM. It reached 60.5 million connections in 2019. This represents approximately more than 56% of Latin America. IoT represents in Brazil a total of 80% wireless connections. And with the arrival of 5G in Brazil, these numbers should grow exponentially. Next. So I brought you another survey here, in which they asked, is your organization already planning or deploying IoT projects? And you will see that 25% of the companies answered that they have a full active deployment of IoT solutions in their companies. Other 47% said they are on a proof of concept stage, and only 28% said that they are still not yet operational. But if you look at the right side of the slide, you will see that the objectives regarding IoT are still very operational. They concentrate in the improvement of efficiency and productivity, and also the quality of the products and services. So they are not very worried right now or thinking about the development of new products and services with the use of IoT. Next. Another surveys show us that most respondents expect to see measurable benefits within 1 or 2 years of deploying IoT in their companies. So IoT solution providers should be aware of this. This is the expectation that a Brazilian company has to see the benefits of this deployment in 1 or 2 years. And another important thing is about the breach, the security. The company said that IoT device authentication breaches are the biggest IoT security worry. As you can see here, we had about 40% of companies saying that this was the biggest concern. Next. So, COVID and digital transformation. The Brazilian government totally agrees that digital transformation was accelerated during the coronavirus pandemic, and that this is an irreversible agenda. Nevertheless, the government has no big plans to inject public money to foster innovation or digital transformation. The government says, in summary, that it will not invest any money, but that it will promote investments. And the government also says that the digital agenda should be guided by marketing principles, and that the government should only contribute to it with a less intrusive regulation, which in the case of Brazil, it's already a lot, because in general, Brazilian regulations, they tend to complicate a lot the business environment. So if they really do this and they have a less intrusive regulation around disruptive technologies in the country, that's already very helpful. Next. So I brought you some cases of cyber attacks in Brazil, because COVID-19 opened doors for cyber attacks in Brazil. And this is becoming a growing concern for Brazilian companies. In a matter of a week, I repeat, in a matter of a week, 3 major corporations have been targeted by hackers. I brought here the case of Avon, which belongs to Natura, a multinational cosmetics company. I brought here the case of Kato, which is a job-seeking website, and Honda, everybody knows, the car maker. So in the case of Avon, they have a cyber incident, and they identified vulnerabilities in Natura's website. In the case of Kato, they identified a security breach on its database. And in the case of Honda, it affected operations in 11 factories, including the Brazilian plant. So they said there was a ransomware attack in which malicious archive kidnaps the company's systems. According to the press, the company's Brazilian motorcycle factory has remained closed since the attack until now. Next. So this latest round of attacks show just how much of a problem cyber attacks have become in Brazil. And you must ask, what has COVID-19 got to do with it, right? First of all, companies were forced to move to remote work overnight. They became exposed to new threats. Second, it was a migration from safe environments to remote working within days. Third, these migrations are not trivial and left doors open to criminals. So what are the next steps? Based on a global research study about cybersecurity made by Checkpoint, they said when companies start to resume activities, 79% of them want to beef up security, of course. Second, they are worried about increasing cyber attacks, especially phishing and social engineering scams. And third, as a result, adopting security tools for mobile devices has become a new priority, not only in Brazil, but I believe in many countries in the world. Next. I don't expect you to read this whole table that I prepared to you, but I just thought that it would be interesting to see how many new business cases we could put together when we analyze this new business reality that we have with the pandemics. So I prepared this. So in the first column, I named the new business reality. In the second, the technologies that could be used, and then the sector or verticals of application of these new technologies. So let's just quickly have a look at the case number 14 and 15, for example. So case number 14, new business reality is gonna be, of course, after the pandemic, the return to the office. What kind of solutions we can use to control, for example, the use of masks and social distancing? In fact, AI can do that. There are some solutions in the market right now that use, for example, computer vision to identify which employees are not wearing masks or that are too close one to the other. So in terms of sector or verticals of application, this could be applied in any company at all. And a last example, the number 13, when we talk about dealing with less employees in the industry. We know that many people, unfortunately, lost their jobs, and well, it's true that it's not just for industry, but for all companies that we have to deliver the same kind of services with the same quality. And we ask, what can we do in this case to continue delivering these services and providing the same quality? So in this case, I have pointed here some technologies like robotic process automation together with AI and also IoT. These technologies, they can be applied very easily in the industrial sector, and they would be surely very valuable. Next. I always like to base my presentations on surveys, as you can see. So I would like to show a survey that was done very recently in April with startups. So Brazilian startups were also impacted by COVID-19, no doubts of it. 56 of them expect a reduction of at least 10% in monthly revenue. 25% of them estimate a reduction of more than 50% in their monthly revenue. So what they are doing about this? They are reducing office expenses, they are renegotiating contracts with suppliers, they are canceling or reducing investments in marketing and sales. And 60% of them, this is good news, 60% of them expect to maintain or even increase their staff during the period. Something that I have not added here, but it's also amazing to know, is that startups, despite of all these challenges, they are still receiving investments. And this was something that caught my attention when I was reading about this, this survey. Next. I brought you some cases of startups that are, let's say, they were obliged to change their business focus, and they did it very well. So let's talk first about mobility startups resorting to delivery during pandemic. So you have companies like Uber, Cabify, 99, which are urban transport startups. So 19 Taxi, they launched a new delivery mode to transport packages. Uber, they launched two different services. The first one, Uber Flash function, is used for deliveries now, and there is also another one called direct mode services, in which business owners can hail a car to deliver their own goods. Very important, this. Cabify, on the other hand, invested in a partnership with a payments company called eBanks, through which users may acquire the products and they can even schedule a delivery date with Cabify drivers. Then we have examples of two logistics startups, Rappi and Logi. They are well established in Brazil as delivery players of small packages that can be transported by bikes or motorcycles. Now, they are also allowing for the delivery of larger packages, another adaptation. And Brazilian startups and corporations, this is very interesting, are joining forces to increase COVID-19 testing in São Paulo. So the population will be able to purchase COVID-19 antibody tests via Rappi delivery app. They can schedule a date to take their tests at a shopping mall. The tests will be collected by medical teams from startup Cia da Consulta on a drive-through mode, which is very important, no contacts. And they will be transported to labs by Logitech Logi. Fintech Stone, another startup, will be in charge of the payments. So the most important thing is that these companies will match sales revenue in donations to public hospitals. Next. So another example is in the retail sector. The Brazilian e-commerce revenue increased by 71% from February to May versus 2019 levels. And I do believe this is happening worldwide. But it's interesting to know that the number of purchase, they are increasing a lot, but the average amount spent, it's decreasing. So it shows that people are choosing to purchase basic items for their daily needs instead of more expensive products. What are the retailers doing to sell more? I found a very interesting case that I wanted so much to share with you because I really admire the general administration of this specific company. It is a fast fashion retailer called Lojas Marisa, and it has created a program called Sou Sócia. In Portuguese, in English, it says, I'm a partner. So people, anybody, may sell the store's products via a special website link and get a 5% commission in return. This is so important, socially speaking, because so many people are losing their jobs right now during the pandemics. So this is really nice because it doesn't only help the company itself, Lojas Marisa, but it helps the population as well. And the fact is that the company aims to reach 100,000 sellers and increase e-commerce share of revenue, currently at 7%. So this is an example that I really like to share. It's an example to all companies. And other retailers are like Casas Bahia, and which is a furniture store, and eyewear brand Chili Beans. They are integrating their workforce to online sales through WhatsApp, which is very, very popular app in Brazil. So in order to fashion more personalized services, they are doing that. The model is already being used by these retailers, and others are interested in doing that as well. Next. let's talk a little bit about the telcos. This is another survey that shows that made a very good question to the telecom operators. The question is, in which of the following aspects is the digital transformation of Brazilian operators more advanced? 34% of them said that they were more advanced in network virtualization. 25% of them said that they were more advanced in services offered beyond connectivity. And then it was followed by customer experience redefinition, cultural change, and some people said none of them. Next. Another interesting question that they made to telecom operators was, in which area will you use AI? In which area will the use of AI bring the most benefits to telecom operators? So you can see here that most of them, 54%, agreed that the most benefits would come to the operating process automation, as we had said in the very beginning. 24% said the customer care using chatbots. We already mentioned that before. And then it was followed by the generation of proactive marketing and network design. And just 1% of them said it would not bring any benefit. Maybe they didn't read anything at all about AI, and that's the reason. So next. So I would say in summary that the main solutions to be adopted during this journey are IoT solutions, AI solutions, big data and analytics, cybersecurity, mobile payments, cloud computing, and another one that I didn't mention before, but there is a huge opportunity, is internet accessibility tools for citizens with disabilities. According to the latest census data, nearly 46 million Brazilians have some kinds of disability. Most websites in Brazil have some kind of accessibility issue. And the roadblocks to internet access means that almost 22% of the population could be deprived of the internet. So this is very important. This is a social concern, and I would like to include it here, although we are not talking about these the disruptive technologies, because I think it's very important for you to know that there is this huge opportunity in Brazil as well. Next. So it brings me to my conclusion with 2 slides only. If you may have realized that Brazil may not be an easy market, right? But I can assure you that the efforts made to be part of this market are worthwhile. It's a huge market, and as you could see, it's very open to new technologies. So if you are convinced about that, you can reach out to us and we will help you. If you are not convinced of that, reach out to us as well and we will convince you. That's because my presentation was not that effective. So what I would advise you to do if you want to go after the Brazil market opportunities. First, talk to our regional offices in our provinces. They will they can qualify you as potential clients to the Trade Commissioner Service. They will see what I said in the very beginning. If you will bring economic benefits back to Canada, you must go through them so they know if you will qualify and if you are already prepared for international markets. Second, visit the country. do it virtually right now, but when it's possible, come to Brazil in person. Third, establish an initial network of contacts, law firms, tax advisors, other service providers. I must say, before continuing this list, that we trade commissioners can help you in all these points here. So don't hesitate to reach out to us. 4, consider Brazil as a long-term opportunity perspective. It's about 2 to 3 years to develop the market. Fifth, be ready to invest in alternative business models. Consider joint ventures, local sales offices, agents, etc. 6, pick up good partners. We are here to help you identifying these good partners. Learn Portuguese, Brazilian Portuguese. Learning Portuguese from Portugal will not help you that much. You should start by learning Brazilian Portuguese. And then, when it's possible, after the pandemic, consider joining a Canadian trade mission to Brazil. Most of our clients, when they have a first contact with us, they are delighted with the kind of information that we provide for their market potential assessment. And after the call, they are very timid to ask, okay, this seems great, but can you please tell me how much this is gonna cost? And I'm always very, very glad to say that this is a free of charge service offered by Global Affairs Canada. So you just have to qualify as a client. If you qualify because you bring economic benefits back to Canada, you have access to a bunch of services offered by us all over the world for nothing, free of charge. So my last slide for my conclusion, it's almost an invitation for you. So we will have 2 future ICT initiatives this year. And one of them, I have lots of clients that already took part. It's a large, very large exhibition in Brazil that previously was only focused on telecommunications, and now it's totally open to digital transformation. So it's a congress and a trade show. We have exhibited there with a Canadian pavilion and about 30, 35 Canadian companies for approximately, I don't know, 10 years. And these clients, they were always very happy with the results. And they always said that they would like to come back again and again. And we did not have a Canadian pavilion for 3 years, the last 3 years. And this year, we had decided and we got an approval to have a Canadian pavilion at FutureCom. And although the exhibition was not canceled, we don't believe that we could have, or we could call our clients and ask them to come to Brazil this year. So what we decided to do, we did not give up, but we will not have a delegation coming from Canada to Brazil. We will have a virtual mission. So I'm working in a partnership with the government of Ontario, and Quebec has also demonstrated interest in participating. But this is open to all provinces, Canadian ICT companies from the whole country. And what we are going to do, we will do the same as is explained during Collision. We will do the matchmaking, and Canadian and Brazilian companies will have virtual B2B meetings. So I hope you are interested, and that you can reach out to me and I will provide more details. But we will start the recruitment approximately, I believe, in July or August. And the second invitation goes to an AI mission to Canada. I have already conducted one in in the end of 2018, and this year I was going to bring another Brazilian delegation to Canada, but it was exactly when the pandemic arrived in Brazil, and 1 week before we had to cancel, which was a pity. But we do believe that until March 2021, we will be able to organize a Brazilian AI mission to Canada. So if you are also interested in taking part in having B2B meetings with Brazilian companies going to Canada, please just let me know. But the recruitment should start, I don't know, around January, probably. So next, this is how I want to thank you, and I conclude my presentations here. And if we still have time, I open to questions, but I believe that my presentation took a lot of time. So it's really up to you guys. I can answer by email afterwards. You already have my email. So it's really up to our MELLOHAWK colleagues to decide on that.
Sheila, thank you so much for your presentation. My God, so much info, so valuable, and the amount of knowledge that your department and yourself have to share with Canadian companies penetrating Brazil is incredible. I learned so much on this presentation. I'm actually shocked of how much I had no idea what goes on in Brazil in this area. So thank you so much. And I apologize, everyone. We are really over the time, but I do have questions and I'd like to go over them very quickly. So first question is from Janine Monnier. I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. What are the actual, and I think some of these have been answered on the presentation, so we're going to comment them very briefly, okay? So her question is, what are the actual challenges business and technology that Brazil-based organizations are facing right now during the pandemic? Are there any post-COVID strategies to help those overcome supply chain challenges in the post-pandemic period? I think you, in some of your slides, you're very specific about what pandemic has caused and what people did to overcome pandemic issues, right? So, and again, I don't know if you'd like to comment, but I think your slides were pretty detailed about this area.
Yeah, I can be very brief. Do you want me to?
Go ahead, yes,
okay.
please.
So, hi, Janine, thanks for your question. So in terms of business, as I mentioned before, we can say that all sectors are struggling with a few customers, and although electronic sales is increasing a lot, the average amounts spent are lower than it used to be. In terms of technology, I would say that everybody now needs a good network coverage. And when you are in a smaller city, this can be a problem. That's why 5G, with its new features and with the commitments that the auction winners will have to respect, 5G will help a lot. In regards to the supply chain, we faced several problems in the beginning of the pandemic in China, especially with electronics equipment supply, but nowadays it's mostly stabilized. Of course, the problem now is, you know, the shortage of planes for air freight and so on. But I believe that this should go back to normal in the next semester. And what the government is doing so far is expanding access to bank credit, especially for small and medium-sized business.
Great, thank you so much. Next question is from Andreas Asmus from City Zen, and he says, how is Brazil adopting drone technology, drones for logistics? Where is the regulation for this? Actually, we provide world's first hub for drones. How can we find local partners? And of course, I'm sure you can assist this company. So any comments?
Yes. Hi, Andres. Thanks for your question. In fact, I have a colleague in charge of the aerospace sector that works with drones, and I can even introduce him to you if you send me an email, which is in the last slide that you can see. What I can say is that I have already identified a business opportunity within a company that works with food delivery in Brazil. This company, it was looking into the possibility of using drones for these deliveries, food deliveries. Although we have identified some Canadian companies working with drones at that time, the Brazilian company did not consider them appropriate for the kind of service that they wanted to deliver. And another opportunity also identified by us is the use of drones to identify problems in power cables. If you add AI to that, you wouldn't even need to have someone looking into all those images that the cameras provide.
I also want to comment, Sheila, that our next webinar is about aerospace with the Trade Commissioner offices. So I encourage André to take part on that, and I'm sure all of us are going to learn so much from it. So thank you so much. The next one is from Nick Trendov from Growth Lab X, I believe, and he talks about the impact of 5G in logistics in Brazil. It's a question, I'm sure there was a lot clarified on your slides as well. And who coordinates academic research projects in Brazil? And I know the Trade Commissioner Office has a lot of experience on partners on research and development as well, right? And he says our interest is in logistics, seaports, trains, trucks from product origin to custom destinations. And of course, Nick, we can help you with that as well, and a lot of knowledge that we have, not only in Brazil, but South America or the world. But Sheila, would you like to comment? And I'm sure your slides also answered a lot of the questions about 5G.
Yeah. Hi, Nick. The first thing I would say was don't miss talking to MELLOHAWK and these guys, they are experts. But as I said, 5G will definitely open doors for the usage of massive IoT. So in my opinion, not only the vehicles, but also the packages transported by these logistics companies will be highly monitored and tracked. So this is an opportunity. In what regards research projects, at a national level, there is an organization called FINEP, which provides grants or they lend money to R&D projects. And at the state level, you have in each state, you have a different organization. So here in São Paulo, for example, we have the most important of them called FAPESP. And I would say if you get in contact with me by email later on, I can invite some colleagues for a call with you and look more in depth on what kind of help you need right now. So that's it.
Thank you. Another question, we're almost done. Bradford Sankar from Translucent Computing, and he asks, what are the major Brazil industries with the most interest in market disruptive digital transformation technology?
Hi, Sankar. This is a very good question. In my opinion, all Brazilian industries are very interested in market disruptive digital transformation technologies now. I have developed initiatives focused, as I said before, on digital transformation in general, in sectors that are the last ones to adopt disruptive technologies, such as mining, power, oil and gas. And, you know, even there, we could identify a bunch of digital demands. Sometimes they just don't have the time to stop and look at it but they are always open to learn and to be introduced to disruptive solution providers. And finally, without saying any names, I would like to mention a client of mine, a Canadian AI solution provider, that told me once that he was very interested in the Brazilian market. Want to know why? The main reason was because he was sure that Canada has a lot of great disruptive technologies to offer, but that the Brazilian market, the Brazilian companies were much more open to adopt these technologies than in Canada. And I must say that later on, I confirmed that information in a market report from one of the biggest consulting companies worldwide. So don't be afraid. Try the companies that you are most familiar with to start, that you have the most experience. But you know, you can try whatever industry you can, because Brazilian companies are very open right now to disruptive technologies.
Great.
And that's it.
Thank you, Sheila. We have another question, and it is from MD Saroar Alam from Seneca College. And I think this question goes to me and you both, but I'm going to read it anyway. What is the future of logistics? As we are developing our technology, machines are replacing human labor. If it continues, millions of hardworking laborers will lose their jobs. Well, I would like to say this, that yes, we live in a digital transformation age where we see many stories of machines replacing human labor. But in logistics, I truly don't believe that machines can replace what supply chain does from the human perspective. There is no way a machine can speak to someone, develop a plan of a logistic solution via AI at this moment. I think it's going to take a very long time. And we have been very successful because we listen to our clients. We hear the story and the needs, and we build a solution based on their needs. And it needs communication, it needs personal touch, it needs contact. I think it's going to be still a very long time for this process to be disrupted from a technology point of view. I'm sure Sheila has her own comments, but I'm selling my profession.
I think you are the you are the expert here in terms of logistics, and but I understand that this concern comes from all sectors, yes, all industries, and what I would like to say is that it is true. Artificial intelligence will take many jobs. Many people will lose their jobs, but this is not the first time in history that this happened. When we advance on something, right? Like we had a first, a second, and a third industrial revolution. But the good thing that I would like to add here is that you should read also about the large amount of new jobs that will be created as a consequence of artificial intelligence as well. So I do consider that we will let the machines do the work that, you know, that they can do. And we will have to invest much more on education to have these people that were just repeating the same tasks every day to do something much more important, something that will make them feel much better with themselves. So it's a problem in the short run, but it's a great investment that we will have to make in order to have people able to deliver so much more that they can do right now because they don't have this this education, this academic background. So I see it very positively. That's my main message here.
Labor is changing, of course, but human contact will never get too old. So I think we have to balance that. We have a last question on the chat, and then we need to end. I'm so sorry taking so long, Sheila, but how this comes from Obadiah Shakaki. I'm sorry, I hope I pronounced correctly. How the exchange rate difference between Brazil real and the Canadian dollar affects market penetration? I mean, exchange rate affects everything, right? But I think it's also how you build your price, build your cost, build your selling, and build the presentation of the product. There's many aspects to this question, but I don't know. I'm sure you can comment too.
I always say you have to choose. Either you will look at the half of the glass that is full or half of the glass which is empty, right?
Yes.
So let's start by the empty space in the glass. And I would say that, yes, it's true, Canadian, if you have a product in Canadian dollars and the price is not very, very much competitive, your product would have a higher price in Brazil. That's sure. But I have 2 points for the other half of the glass, which is full. First, if your technology is very, very good and it exceeds the expectation of a Brazilian company, they will not be comparing your price with the other Brazilian company's price, right? They will put you in another category, and they will have to provide values to different things, right? They will pay more, but they will have more, and as a consequence, they will have more profit as well, I hope. And the second thing on a positive point is think you are not only competing with Brazilian companies, you are mostly competing with American companies. And if you do manufacture your 2 products at the same cost, the American product would arrive here more expensive than the Canadian one, right? So at least you could be very competitive in terms if you compare your product to the American product.
Correct, correct. Anyway, we come to the end. I want to ask people to fill out our survey as well that Diego put it on the chat. I want to thank Diego Correa, my business development manager, for helping put this webinar together, this webinar series. I want to thank Dr. Heather Cameron, the Consul General of the Canadian Consulate in São Paulo, for her opening remarks. It was great to have you here and see you again. We met last year, but so great that you will be able to join. And I have no words to thank you, Sheila Santos, for putting this presentation together. What a joy it was, and I learned so much, and I'm sure all our viewers learn incredibly about ICT, and I hope Canadian companies will reach out to you and to the Trade Commissioner services all over Brazil and all over the world, right? Because it's not only Brazil, and ask for their help, because it is a free government service given by the government of Canada, and Canadian companies should take advantage of it. It is a pleasure to partner with you and your offices on this webinar series. We are honored to have you, so thank you ever so much. And I'm sure I'll see you again in Brazil as soon as the border is open and we can fly to São Paulo for some Brazilian coffee. So
I know. We will have a good coffee here. Although I just drink tea.
Perfect. Yes.
But
Sheila,
Arnold, thank you so much for the invitation. It was a pleasure to be here. And please feel free to count on me whenever you need. Thanks, everybody, for being with us for more than 1.5 hours, right?
Yes. Yes. And again, I apologize for going over the time, but it was so much material that we had to cover. And we'll see you again on the 30th of July with our aerospace webinar, which is going to be really interesting. So we ask you to join. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Sheila. Goodbye and have a great weekend.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.